The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
It's time to attack. With the Attack Style Wrestling Podcast. Here on the Attack Style Wrestling Podcast, you'll find youth and high school coaching tips for coaches, parents, and wrestlers, featuring Gable-trained NCAA champion and Hall of Fame high school coach Daryl Weber. Also featured is a monthly dialogue with legendary wrestling coach Dan Gable. Find out more on AttackStyleWrestling.com. Now, on to the show. And another edition of the Attack Style Wrestling Podcast. NCAA wrestling champion and Hall of Fame high school coach Daryl Weber with us as always. Today, our guest, Zach Even-Esh from ZachEven-Esh.com. He is the underground strength coach, and you've seen his videos on the web. He's been a guest here on the show with Daryl before, but today we're going to talk with Daryl and Zach about off-season training, off-season preparation, things that can keep wrestlers active and ready for their next season, whether that be going from the break between the state tournament into freestyle and Greco season, whether it's the break between Fargo and high school football season, or then you wait through the winter time and you get there, or that break between high school and college, what you can do to be active. And first of all, Coach Weber, as a longtime high school coach and as a competitor, these breaks are make or break, pardon the pun, when it comes to jumping levels and being able to compete that next time out.
Yeah, right now when we're recording this, it's February. Seasons are going to be winding down soon. And when I was coaching high school, I was already planning things out and, looking at how are we going to attack the off season. And so I wanted to get Zach on because he's one of the top authorities on the line with especially dealing with wrestlers. And he's had a lot of time in there. So I kind of wanted to basically, I'm hoping to get off this podcast and have people armed with a master class on how to attack the off season, get stronger. Because, when I was coaching, the more muscle you can put on your athletes in the off season, the stronger you can get them. You can build a little factory in your program where you're just cranking out above average wrestlers regularly just off of pure strength, even if you don't have that great a technique, or you're just getting kids out and, in their first year wrestlers. So I wanted to get Zach on and pick his brain on what he thinks is the ideal program in the off season.
And let's introduce Zach real quick, and before we get into the weeds with that, because I know you guys are just waiting or chomping at the bit to get at each other's knowledge. But Zach, just a little background on yourself. You wrestled growing up in the East Coast, New Jersey, and you've got a background in the sport of wrestling, but it's also taken you into strength training and things of that nature. So let's just give us a little bit about your background in wrestling and how you've parlayed that into becoming the underground strength coach.
Yes. So my older brother, there's three of us. I'm a middle one. My younger brother wrestled at Rutgers. But I was in high school and I didn't start wrestling till my freshman year. And my brother started sophomore year. He was 2 years ahead. And he was always into the whole, physical training aspect, buying the weights from Sears, running every day, just finding ways to train. I remember seeing him doing pull-ups like off the ledge of the garage door. And I was not, we were very different, but he said, listen, man, this is the best friggin' sport. This is just amazing. You have to wrestle. And when I joined the wrestling team, the numbers were very big. I actually had to wrestle off to try to make the freshman team. And Daryl, I think you were in Virginia, and I don't even know if your school had a freshman team. I haven't seen a high school with a freshman team for 15 years easily. Yeah. So now it's JV and varsity. So basically, I learned the hard way. Number one, I didn't have wrestling skill. A lot of those kids did. Number two, I was very weak. I just got my ass kicked all over the place until I started training. And even though I trained the wrong way, I got stronger. It built my confidence. I found myself not gassing out in the third period while other kids did gas out. And just physically being bigger, I noticed how people respected me differently on the mat. And long story short, When I got into college, I had a lot of ups and downs with injuries from training the wrong way. And I said, I'm just not going to wrestle this freshman year. And I started coaching the rec team. And then my sophomore year, they cut the wrestling program. And it's, this like regret that I have forever, that I was like, man, I didn't even give myself that chance. So I learned a lot from a lot of my mistakes in the early years. And then, of course, I started training the wrestlers pretty much on like a day in and day out basis since about 2002. And I mean like the strength and conditioning aspect. So I've seen how wrestling has evolved, the style of wrestling has evolved, and kids have evolved because of technology and sitting more and elimination of phys ed and just a lot of differences in the world. So, now I own 3 locations of the Underground Strength Gym. We primarily train wrestlers, and I'm now the strength coach for Rutgers University, and they actually just brought me in. I started like the first week of January. Their strength coach got a new position, and they brought me in, and we're making progress. I train those guys twice a week in season, and I give some extra workouts for the guys who are red shirts or basically all the non-starters. So they have some extra work. And 2 years ago, I was with Lehigh for the year, and same thing with them, twice a week in season lifting. And then a lot of those guys were actually doing a third shorter strength session. And, we're going to talk, I know, about off-season training, but, here's the bottom line is our most successful wrestlers, they just kind of look at it like, okay, I'm training year round, period. And we make some changes in season. We make some changes in the immediate postseason. And then we have some different changes kind of in the deeper off season when they're not as competitive. And we have kids that do freestyle and Greco, and we have kids that don't. And now if I look at our kids that basically struggle, these are the kids that they don't lift in the off season until 2 to 3 months preseason. So they try to crunch, 10 months of work or 8 months of work into 2 months. And what happens is they put on a lot of fat. You just, this is going to be the most common sense podcast, guys, meaning everybody wants all these friggin' tricks. And I'm just really fed up with the fads and the gimmicks and the tricks. Here's the bottom line. We all know, even a 15-year-old wrestler knows, he will not add muscle and get stronger and more explosive and get tougher without lifting or doing calisthenics and strength work. But there's a lot of kids who, after wrestling season, they don't lift and they get fat. And then they show up in September saying, all right, I weigh 130 and I want to go 106, but I haven't been lifting. And look, we produce results, but the fact that you didn't do work, you didn't strength train at least twice a week, I mean, for even 30 minutes a session, I'm going to be honest with the athletes out there. It's like, you got to train year round. That is the bottom line. Our in-season guys train once, maybe twice a week. It really depends on their personality. Some of them thrive on doing extra work and not taking days off, while some of the other ones thrive on being a little bit more dialed in, having rest days and, feeling good. But our best kids train, they train year round. So I guess, Dal, fire off some questions because we have some kids, I guess, like I said, right after the season ends, some of our kids start going into what's in Virginia. We have like the individual nationals, then you got team nationals. So a lot of our kids basically are competing all the way up until Fargo, all the way up until late July. So it's like this ongoing season.
Right.
And there's, our kids are wrestling at clubs pretty much year round. So there's a system for sure. And I tweak it based on how they thrive. And also sometimes I got to tell them, look, what you're doing is really not the blueprint to be great. You're basically going to always be that kid that's going to take fourth in the region until we make a specific change. And that might be wrestling skill. That might be lifestyle. That might be nutrition. It might be training with us one more day a week, or it might be a combination of all that stuff. So, fire away with questions, and I want to give coaches stuff that they could start implementing, immediately.
Yeah. I think you hit on a couple good things, really good things. When the season ended, and I would always be armed with, a handout, kind of a game plan for the spring. You kind of, took it in chunks, and then once the spring was winding down, you had you wanted to make sure nobody had an excuse. Well, I didn't know this was going on. So, you always, as a wrestling coach, I always had, ideally they were going to be getting on the mat twice a week, lifting weights 3 times a week, hitting some tournaments, and then you had to kind of juggle things there. But bare minimum, if they said, Coach, I'm just done for this, season wore me out, I don't want to get on the mat. Bare minimum, they had to be lifting weights. I mean, if you're not, you got to. Coach Gable used to tell us when he would cut us free in the summer. I think I remember him saying it a couple of times, is like, you got to at least be in better shape than the average frat guy.
It's, here's the thing. These kids are going to feel burnt out and run down because they're out of shape. So it's like, this is, akin to me going and enlisting in the Marines and not training leading up to boot camp. That if you want to thrive, you should be crushing your push-ups, your pull-ups, your sprints, your distance running, because that's what's going to happen at boot camp. You need to get used to waking up early and going to bed early. Same thing in wrestling. You're not going to thrive by the end of the season. And that's the thing about every sport, is that it's easy to be good in the first month. But what about districts are coming here in New Jersey in 3 weeks, and it's not the kids who had to cut a lot of weight. They may have been good in that first month, but now it's who stayed consistent with their lifting in season. So if you're crushed after the season, you should be fine with just taking 4 days off, take a week off. My coach used to say you get a maximum of 2 weeks off. I remember after the season, I couldn't wait to just start getting back to the gym, to training. I loved the training. But I think, give yourself a week off, come home, take a nap after school, catch up on some sleep, get those extra calories in to help with some of the beatings your body takes during the season, and then start getting into a simple off-season program. And what you do, Daryl, is great. Not a lot of coaches say, hey, here's what I want you guys doing in the off-season. They're kind of the best coaches have that kind of year-round connection, whereas the teams that tend to struggle, the coach does not, make connections with a local wrestling club coach, a local strength coach, because that would just make their job easier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So after that season, you take a week off. Then you start getting back into what I like to do, like a month of kind of moderate weights, moderate reps. So they're doing anywhere from like 3 to 5 sets of 6 to 12 reps, because then they're not going so heavy where they got to get psyched up and lifting heavy and struggling under these heavy loads, and also gives their joints a little break, because after the season, your joints have taken a pounding. We want to increase some of those calories. You want to get some of that muscle built back on, and those moderate reps, moderate weights. It's basically like, muscle building or bodybuilding work to kind of replace some of the muscle that you lost in season, which is okay. In season, our guys are going to lose weight. That's a natural thing that happens. So in season, I'm working on improving strength, improving power with a lot of like low rep work. But postseason, even our guys that are going right into nationals, they tend to have no problem maintaining that weight class by doing that moderate reps, moderate sets. So here would be like a sample workout. And for the people listening, if it doesn't kind of make sense, they could check out any of our videos on YouTube, and then it'll kind of give you an idea of the pace we put our guys through. So we get a good warm up in. It's calisthenics, it's gymnastics, it's some light kettlebell carries. We drag sleds, All these things kind of hype up the body, activate the body, and get the mind ready for a workout. Our workouts are always full body, but some of them have a bit more of a lower body focus. Some of them a more upper body focus. It depends on the time of the year, but that little more extra focus allows us to do more volume, which puts on a little more muscle. So let's just say it's like a lower body focused day. After they do their warm up, we might do a box squat. So we might do something like 5 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 3 to 6 reps. So they might do like 2 sets of 3. After each set, we're going to sneak in some calisthenics. So one set, you're going to do pull-ups. Next set, you're going to do push-ups, maybe push-ups on the rings, maybe push-ups going over a medicine ball, maybe push-ups with 1 or 2 chains on your neck, depending on your strength. So I'm sneaking in a little upper body, even though it's a lower body focused day. After that, we're going to do some sort of maybe a unilateral leg exercise like Bulgarian split squats, which is with the back foot elevated on a bench, or lunges. We might hold kettlebells, dumbbells, sandbags while doing these lunges. And then in between all these lunges, we're going to do a carry. So we're going to do a kettlebell carry, dumbbell carry, sandbag, keg carry, something that works not just the legs, but even a little bit of upper body work. Then when they're done with that, we're going to do some sleds, some band pull-aparts, some light arms. So we're working strength, we're working muscle building, and we're also working stamina, because they don't really do, I'm not a fan of the guys just doing a set and then you rest. We're always doing, we're doing a lift and then we're jumping. We're doing a lift and we're sneaking in body weight. So by the end of the workout, we've gotten a lot of good volume and we're moving at a good pace, which is like their overall fitness. And what this does is now they don't have to go and add more conditioning, because we do strength work at a fast pace. And then if it's an upper body day, it might be a barbell floor press, it might be a bench press, it might be a overhead press, but we make them power clean the bar for the first rep before they overhead press. So it might be something like this. Barbell or dumbbell clean and press, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps, coupled with a body weight pull. So after every set, you might climb the rope. Then you might do pull-ups. Then you might do a inverted row on the rings or on the ropes. So we mix in that body weight pull. Then after that, it might be some dumbbell benching on a flat or incline. Or if I've got kind of these wrestlers who've been with me for a while, I might say, okay, we're going to do 3 sets of incline presses, and you're going to do a dumbbell or kettlebell row. But these dumbbell benching angles are going to be, one's going to be a high angle, one's going to be a middle, one's going to be a low angle, because wrestlers love the variety. They love having, multiple areas of the training that they could attack. So I mix it up for them if I know they could handle it. If it's more of maybe a freshman who's new to the lifting, I'm just going to say, you're just going to flat bench, or you're just going to incline bench. And then after they do that pushing and pulling, they go back and forth, push the dumbbells, row the dumbbells. I'm probably going to do carries again. We do carries basically because, as you know, Daryl, I looked at this from the early days of studying Gable as like the farm boys. I want our guys being farm boy strong. I don't want them sitting and laying on benches all the time. So if we're going to do a military press, your first rep is going to require a power clean. I'm going to make them carry and push and pull and basically wrestle against the weights in the weight room. So I'm trying to simulate what I am assuming kids on the farm are doing. And depending on the equipment you have, if you've got medicine balls or it's like the springtime, you take them out to the field and you throw medicine balls. You throw the ball, you sprint, or you throw it where you and a partner are maybe 20 to 30 feet away from each other. And that engages full body work, and it's these repeated bouts of explosive activity. And then we sneak in calisthenics. So at the end, I might say, you guys have 5 minutes and you got to do 5 squat jumps. You got to do a body weight push. That might be a push-up, a dip, feet elevated push-ups, and a body weight pull. Rope climbing, pull-ups, recline rows. You got 5 minutes to do as much work as you can. So they do maximum work, and what that volume builds muscle. and it builds strength endurance and speed endurance. And it's not a CrossFit thing, because I found that if you do everything for time, especially on barbell lifts, the kids will put the technique on the back seat. So if I'm doing any kind of timed stuff, it's very simple things that you can't really screw up the technique. So even now, like in season at Rutgers, we might finish our main lifts, and then I'm going to say, all right, you guys have 9 minutes. So I'm going to simulate a match with some overtime or some, maybe there's blood time and you have to rest a little bit in there. So I'm going to say something like 9 minutes, 10 minutes, 7 minutes, and you're going to drag a sled, you're going to carry, and then you're going to come in here and do abs or sled, carry, arm exercise. And it's simple stuff that they can't mess up. It's not a highly technical lift. And it allows them to push the pace and have that mind-body connection to, okay, I'm training, but I'm also thinking about wrestling. And I always get our wrestlers to say, to kind of understand the connection, meaning if we've all seen this, Darryl, that you got a guy who's maybe lifting the most in the gym, but then he can't seem to put it together on the mat, which is no good, because the training must build the sport. And this kind of training will build any athlete. Wrestler, some of our wrestlers play football. They might do some spring track, or they might throw, or who knows what it is, but you're putting your mind and thinking about it. So I tell the guys, when you guys are doing these power cleans, I want you to think about hitting a double and lifting the guy so it makes sense to you. When you guys are doing a Zercher squat, I want you to think of like getting in on some guy and like bear hugging him and just putting him down and lifting him. Or when we do these jumps, I need you to think of being explosive on bottom or explosive in the last period. And what happens is the athletes buy into the training. And if an athlete believes in the training, he's going to win. For example, you're an Iowa guy. One of the coaches actually at Rutgers, Donnie Pritzloff, he wrestled at Wisconsin. And their strength coach, I think it was one of your teammates. Were the Steiner brothers one of your teammates? Were they your teammates?
Yep.
So Troy was his strength coach. And he goes, man, we didn't really have strength coaches back then. And, of course, Barry was an Iowa guy. So what did always Iowa do? They'd bring in a former wrestler to be your strength coach / wrestling partner. And you guys basically just attacked the weight room. It wasn't really this perfect, scientific, I just don't believe in that. That's not what works for wrestlers. So he told me, Donnie said, there were days we'd lift and Troy would take us to a workout. He's like, I couldn't, pick up my hands to touch my hair. He goes, because we would do pull-ups and then heavy barbell cheat curls and then heavy dumbbell hammer curls. And really, you're doing a bunch of like hang cleans. You're doing the barbell power curl is like an underhand hang clean. And the dumbbell hammer curl is like a dumbbell hang clean. And you're just training your body to work as a unit. And I don't think too many kids understand how to move that way. We have to build them up to that. But I'm basically emphasizing that once we get past that, 4 week, maybe 5 or 6 week postseason time, you start incorporating some of that aggressiveness to the training where they could make sense of the training, because we don't want Jim Strong who can't apply it to wrestling. And really, the basic lifts are always going to be great. Squatting, pressing, deadlifting, carrying, sprinting, jumping, bodyweight exercises. Those basics will always deliver. But now you got to have the mind connection to it. And that's where the coach has to make that happen. And you have to do that every day. You got to get into the heads of these guys so they believe in the training, so they can ultimately believe in themselves. Because at the highest levels, it's a big confidence factor. I mean, it's the mindset. I look at when I was at Lehigh, they were also ranked like 9th, 10th, 11th. And that's where Rutgers is roundabout now. And that big difference maker from being ranked 10th and beating the team that's ranked, 6th, 7th, 8th, it's not like there's this huge difference in wrestling skill. It's who's ready to fight more and push for more scoring. And then then you got the big difference from the teams ranked like 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd and 1st. And those guys just have the utmost belief in themselves. And you don't get that belief unless you've worked for it. You know what I'm saying? So I utilize all of our training as a mindset, confidence, mental toughness booster. So everything I do is like, I want it to feed the wrestling in a powerful, it's like that feeding the two wolves, the good or the evil. And that the evil is the one that has doubt and allowing doubt and lack of confidence to creep in. So the training is so much more than the physical, right? And how did I get to all this? I always take like 20 minutes to answer your question, but we're saying like kids will be like, oh man, I'm just crushed from the season. Well, that's because you're not tough. And that's because you didn't train to be tough. You tried to do just enough, or you tried to train normal, meaning you went to the typical Globo gym, whatever those Globo gyms
Globo
are.
gym.
Right, whatever they call them. And you're sitting on the machine, you're laying on the machine, and you're checking your phone in between sets. When we're training, it's a battle in there, but the one thing I do is I look to build longevity into the kids. So that first month after the season, I want them to feel those muscles getting pumped with blood. That makes them feel good. I don't let them max out and just, destroy themselves. And that makes them feel good. And then what happens is they start wanting to train harder because they're like, man, I feel good. I feel recouped. They start seeing their body in the mirror. Hey, man, I'm putting muscle back on. And that postseason is a great time to build muscle because their body was going through a very high energy output during the season, coupled with lower calories. And now they're getting more rest, more calories, less wrestling. So their body takes to the training and the nutrition even more so, kind of the way like how bodybuilders back in the day, after a competition, they would make some of their best gains because they upped their calories, they rested more, so their body kind of went through what's called like super compensation. They were being overworked, and then they went into a phase of, kind of like a better rested and a better fed body, and their body kind of absorbs it better.
We'll have more with Zach Even-Esh, the underground strength coach, on the next episode of the Attack Style Wrestling Podcast. This is part 1 of a 3-part series, so you will want to make sure you do not miss 1 second of these knowledge bombs dropped by the man himself, Zach Even-Esh.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.